Hey everybody, it's Jim. It's Amedeus, and it must be Friday. And boy, do we have a lot of interesting stuff coming up this weekend. It's almost too much from the standpoint of what we got coming up. Um, we've got obviously the college football. We got the Ryder Cup. We got the NFL. We've got NASCAR, and we've got goodness, what? Oh, and we've got baseball. So, man, we got a full plate on our hands here. Let's take a quick. We got a comment and a question, real quick. Let's take that and get it going. Okay. Hey, Greg, how you doing? Odds on the ACC Big Bowl thing? I would say 20%, maybe 22%. Uh, that's now. Later, and when I say later, I mean years from now, uh, that's probably be better. But I don't buy it. There's not enough credible reporting out there to make me think it. And so for the moment, I'm going with everybody staying where they are at least for a year or two. You know, it just doesn't. All that stuff out there is great for Twitter, and God knows I love it, but it's just not there, and we'll see. But Greg, it's a good question. It's a fair question. All right, Amadeus. We got a ton of stuff. Let's get to tonight's tonight's games in college football. And is that tonight's game? Mm, I'm looking for. Yeah, it's tonight's game, right?
Yep.
Okay. Louisville, North Carolina State, Colorado, Princeton, Louisiana Tech, UTEP. And why did I think that Utah was playing tonight against?
Oh, they
Okay,
are. They're
they
they're
are.
playing Oregon State.
They're just not on here. Okay, my
Yeah,
apologies.
and then Cincinnati and BYU as well.
Okay, those are two good teams, and two they should be on here. Jim, where are they? Um, all right,
There's
well
not
let's
enough
go.
room for everything.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So Louisville, North Carolina State. That should be an interesting game. Columbia, Princeton. If you're a big Ivy League fan, those guys are they're rivals. Although I don't remember the last time Columbia beat Princeton. Um, and then Louisiana Tech and UTEP. That's that. But the marquee ones, the ones I left off, which is Oregon State or Washington State taking on Utah tonight. That should be that should be a good one. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen anything about the quarterback situation at Utah at this moment. Have you seen anything with regards to Cam Rising maybe playing tonight?
So I don't think he's going to play because that one opened up. Oregon State was a -1 favorite very early in the week,
Mm-hmm.
and it got up to about 3 on Monday, and it kind of stayed there all week. And then yesterday it shot up to 4.5 for
Hmm.
Oregon State. So every indication is that Cam Rising is likely not going to play, and if they're not going to have at least a decent passing game in this one, then I don't know. I don't know how much damage they're going to be doing in Corvallis.
Yeah, the defense, their defense bailed them out last week. I'm talking about Utah now, and it's going to be yeah. Oregon State's a good on both sides of the ball, so it's going to be an interesting one. The BYU game, I do think is you know they're two relatively evenly matched teams. You know they got out of the blocks pretty much the same, so that should also be a good game. So we're gonna have a Pac-12 and a Big 12 game tonight that should be entertaining from that standpoint. And let's Major League Baseball, boy, just so you know it, they will have games on. They're working on their schedule for today. I would suggest you check out MLB Network because that's where the games are going to be. There's a wacky situation. I don't know if you saw this, but last night the Marlins, who were losing in the ninth inning, 1-0, came back for and scored 2 runs, and then the game was suspended because of rain. And so it's conceivable that if the Marlins uh, end up in a tie with Chicago or Cincinnati, that they will have to go and fly from Pittsburgh, which is where they're playing the rest of the weekend, fly from Pittsburgh to Flushing Meadow, play an inning, and then fly from there to wherever their wild card game would be. So it's still crazy in this situation. And the Baltimore Orioles, just in case you missed this, Baltimore clinched the Eastern Conference, Eastern title in the National League last night. So congratulations to the Orioles who haven't done that for quite a while. So there you go, boys and girls. So there is that. Let's talk about tomorrow. And here's the games for tomorrow that we kind of like. Syracuse against Clemson. That's noon. ABC. Dave Pasch, Dusty Dvorak, Tom Luckenbill. Number 8 USC Colorado. That's the big. That's the big telecast on Fox. Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt. Uh, you know, we've been joking for almost a week now about this is the brunch game because it's 9 a.m. That's gotta. I mean, both teams are now in Boulder. I gotta believe that this might be the earliest curfew for a football game that I've ever seen from standpoint of you know having to be in bed and basically trying to get some rest before you got to hit that stadium at 5 or 6 a.m. Tomorrow morning.
Yeah, grabbing your coffee and hash brown on your way into the
Right.
game for sure. It's going to be a tough one for both teams probably because
Yeah.
Colorado's not used to playing. Even though it's 10 a.m., they got the hour in their pocket. It's still an early game for them. They normally wouldn't play at that time. So
No.
yeah, definitely going to be a tough game for both of those. Now the total in that game is at 73.5, and I almost like the under just because you got to wonder how strong these offense. Obviously, neither team plays defense, but it's going to be interesting to see how both offenses come out to start the game specifically. And when the total is as
Mm-hmm.
high as a number like 73.5, you can't afford a drive with no scoring. So all it takes is that first quarter. You get like a low scoring
Mm-hmm.
quarter because both offenses aren't as sharp as they normally would be.
Right.
And I could see that game flying under 73 for sure.
What's how how big of a favorite is SC in this game?
They opened at 27.5 very early in the week, but that
Mm-hmm.
shot right down to 21.5 by the
Mm-hmm.
by later in that night, the day it opens. So yeah, about 21.5 is where it's at right now.
This might be one of those games where all the points are scored in the second half. There might be a couple of drives early on in the game that connect for some points, but that second half could be a pinball machine. I mean, that once they wake up, that'll be fine. So yeah, I'm looking at probably tomorrow. Second half of that game is going to be wild. So we'll see. Florida has a chance as they they go to Kentucky at noon. That's Joe Tessitore and Jesse Palmer, former Florida Gator quarterback. Uh, this is one of those games where if Florida can beat Kentucky, they kind of establish themselves as the second best team in the East to Georgia. And I think we both have said that it's pretty weak SEC this year. And that being said, Kentucky's always a tough place to go and to play. So it'll be a very interesting game between the Gators and Kentucky. But you beat Florida, beat Tennessee, they should be able to beat Kentucky. But Kentucky, for some reason, has given them grief in the past. So we'll have to see how that one plays out. That game is on ESPN tomorrow around at noon. All right, so this one is the Big 12 big matchup at this point. 24th ranked Kansas and Texas. Now, Texas, over the years, has played down to their, you know, played down to teams that they're not supposed to beat. Now they're supposed to beat Kansas, and you know they're going to have one of those games. Is it going to be this week? Is it going to be who's it going to be? Or is Steve Sarkisian actually got a team here that potentially is a national championship quality team?
Yeah, I'm not quite buying into this Texas team yet. I know they
Mm-hmm.
had a win on the road against Alabama, which
Mm-hmm.
you could call impressive, but we've seen this Alabama team enough to know that they're nothing special this year. They don't really have much of an offense. The defense is there, but yeah. So I'm still not buying into this Texas team. They also
Mm-hmm.
have the Red River Shootout on deck.
Right.
That's big game against Oklahoma next week. So
Mm-hmm.
how focused are they going to be on this one? It's tough to say. They did blow Kansas out last year, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we'll see. They're at home. It'll be an interesting one for sure. Probably definitely a game to watch.
Well, and you got then number one Georgia at Auburn, and again, Auburn hasn't um, lit up the world. But then again, Georgia, as we've discussed a number of times, Georgia has yet to settle on a quarterback that they are comfortable with. So that game, by the way, 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m. on CBS. Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson. It's going to be one of those games where I think Georgia wins, but Auburn gives them just enough grief to make that one a closer game than it probably should be. So we'll see how that plays out. Number two, Michigan is taking on Nebraska. That's the 3:30 game on Fox with Jason Benedetti and Brock Heward. And then also at 3:30 is Baylor going to play UCF. That game will be played at the Bounce House in Orlando. And ironically, it was USF's win over Baylor a few years ago that put them on the radar for expansion into the Big 12 back then. So we'll see. Michigan and Nebraska. This one is a road game for Michigan, and that's a rare road game because they haven't played it. I think this was the first road game they played
Yes.
so far this season. And Nebraska's better. Okay, you be hard to get worse, but they're definitely a better team. Are they good enough to beat Michigan on the road? Probably not. But what's the spread on that game? Michigan's probably a pretty heavy favorite.
Yeah, Michigan's a 17-point favorite in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's their first road game of the season,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, Nebraska. So they've looked better in their last two games. They've,
Mm-hmm.
they've, they've won both of them, but they're coming off a win against La Tech, who
Mm-hmm.
you know Louisiana Tech's not that good. Nebraska has no offense. The
Mm-hmm.
defense might be good, but they have no offense, and we've seen this Michigan defense just shut teams down. Arguably, I would think Rutgers has a better offense than
Right.
Nebraska at this point. So,
True.
Rutgers came out, they scored 7 points right off the bat. Obviously, that pissed Michigan off. They didn't let them score the rest of the game.
Yep.
So, yeah, Michigan, they if I were them, I would be looking to blow the doors off in this game just because there's some stiff competition this year, and Georgia hasn't looked great themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a chance. You could slip up to number one in the rankings if you just start blowing teams out. Georgia's fumbling these games like they did against
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina. So I think there's some motivation for Michigan, but yeah, first road game of the season, conference game. Well, we'll see what Matt Rule has in store for probably his toughest game of the season.
Right. Well, and then there's Baylor and UCF. Baylor's hurt. I mean, they're banged up really bad. I'm not certain that. I mean, they're missing some of their playmakers. They would have a difficult time, I would think, playing at UCF under the best of circumstances because it is the first, Big 12 game on campus at UCF. So that's got to be, everywhere around campus they're geeked out about it. So Baylor comes to town now. You can get geeked out and then lose because you're so excited. You play yourself out before you even play the game. But Baylor comes to town banged up, and we'll have to see if that's that. That's going to be a good situation. I mean, that being said, Baylor has played some competitive football this year. They just haven't been healthy enough to really string together some wins.
Yeah, they're missing their starting quarterback here.
Right.
He's been out for a few games now, and they've been terrible. They scored 6 points against Texas last week. They've been struggling a lot without their quarterback, and
Mm-hmm.
Central Florida has an offense at home here. I don't think Baylor has the offense to keep up with Central Florida in this game.
Well, we'll see how the bounce house is bouncing tomorrow. All right, here's some of our primetime games. And if it will just, there. Graphic change to the, there we go. All right. I think both of us think that Notre Dame's going to lose to Duke at 7:30 on ABC. Reese Davis stepping in the role of play-by-play. Kirk Herbstreit will be sitting beside him. So thoughts on that? Duke is a pretty darn good football team at this point. And Notre
Yeah,
Dame didn't.
that's a tough
Unfortunately,
one.
I was upset. I was on Notre Dame. I think we both were last week, but Notre Dame just didn't show anything in that game against Ohio State.
Yeah, Notre Dame definitely was the better team against Ohio State. The
Mm-hmm.
defense played great. Obviously, the offense
Right.
had its struggles, but that was a game where, they just found a way to blow it at the
Mm-hmm.
end. I still think Notre Dame has a very good team with Sam
Mm-hmm.
Hartman there. They're obviously going to be looking to bounce back in this game. I don't like this game a lot just because I do think Duke is live to win it. They have a very
Mm-hmm.
good team. Riley Leonard, I've talked about him before, is a very
Mm-hmm.
good quarterback. Obviously, they're at home here and they'll have confidence. They've already taken down Clemson at home. What's Notre Dame to them? But yeah, Notre Dame. This is a tough spot just because I think Duke definitely has the talent to keep up with Notre Dame at home here, but Notre Dame's going to be pissed from losing to Ohio State. Uh, there's a chance they could just blow out Duke in this one. I don't really like that game too much.
Michigan State, Iowa. This is the big primetime game, Big Ten primetime game on NBC. Noah Eagle, Todd Blackledge with the call. We know Iowa can play defense. They haven't shown much offense. I feel badly for Michigan State because they're in a total state of flux without a coach, and wondering, who the next coach is going to be. So, from their standpoint, it's a road game. They have to go to Iowa. It's everything kind of sets up for Iowa at this point if they can score.
Yeah, you know who I feel bad for, Jim?
Hmm.
I feel bad for anybody who has to watch this game because they decided to put it on television. This game's an absolute joke. Michigan State has been a joke in their last two games. Iowa, as you just said, they can't score points with Cade McNamara. It doesn't matter if it's him or Petrus. At this point,
Right.
the offense is just non-existent. Yeah, Iowa comes in as 12.5 point favorite, if you can believe that.
Oof.
They might just score 12 points in the game. So,
And a half.
well, yeah, well, somehow they'll each get
Right.
a half point in there just
Get a
because
ruse.
these
Yeah.
two teams. But yeah, that's one. This is a game I want nothing part of.
I'm serious. I'm curious as to why NBC would pick this game. I mean, this is your prime time game, and it's not even one of the top 20 games of the day.
They
So
must have picked it before Iowa got shut out by Penn State last week.
I guess maybe so. Maybe
Back when
so.
when they were ranked last week.
Could be. Could be. All right. Prime time. Alabama, Mississippi State. That's 9 o'clock on ESPN. Mark Jones and Rod Gilmore. Quint Kesnick on the sidelines. No reason to think that Mississippi State won't give Alabama some grief, but at the end of the day, Alabama will probably find a way to win. Mississippi State has not been that great this season, and Alabama still is Alabama. So we'll see how that one plays out. Our number one team in the country, Washington, is at Arizona. That's a 10 o'clock start. Pac-12 Network, Ted Robinson, Yogi Roth on it, and on that call. You know, Washington taking down Arizona down in Tucson. What's the line? That's got to be a talk about heavy favorites. That's got to be a really big number.
Yeah, so Washington, I think, opened around 17, and
Mm-hmm.
it's gotten up to around 18 to 19 and a half now. I've seen it some
Mm-hmm.
places. Um, yeah, it's an interesting one because Washington has had a history of struggling when they go to the desert.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is a very different Washington team. And there's, even though they were on the road,
Mm-hmm.
we've seen them in a tough spot when they had to go to Michigan State.
Right.
That was Michigan State's not a good team, but that was still a cross country travel for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they blew the doors off in a 41-7 win.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of those games where Arizona's a streaky team. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
they're at home here, but I wouldn't be betting against what
Mm-hmm.
might be the number one team in the country.
Yeah, understood. And then you've got Fresno State, who is, you know, probably one of the. I don't. So they just don't get a lot of respect. And if you look at the seasons that they've had year after year, they always bust up Power Five. They've been really good at playing teams. They're always an offense that's entertaining. And then you've got Nevada, which would be the opposite of Fresno State. They're not necessarily entertaining to watch, and they haven't really been playing a lot of good ball. They've been beating themselves. But Fresno State, to me, that should be a pretty good game for them. They're playing at home, and they're playing better than Nevada. So Dan Haley and Petro Petrodopoulos on the call for that game.
Yeah, that's Fresno State. I agree with you. They're a very good team. They're always a threat to win the
Mm-hmm.
Mountain West Conference. They're definitely going to be a threat to win the Mountain West Conference this year. They might have the best team in the conference right
Mm-hmm.
now, unless Air Force has anything to say about that. But yeah, Nevada, not a good team at all. And I think last week's game for Nevada pretty much sums up their season in general. They came out, took a 17-0 lead over Texas State. Texas State couldn't do anything in the first half. They were turning the ball over on, fourth and shorts. They were fumbling the ball. You name it, Texas State was doing it. They go into halftime down 17-0. Texas State comes out, scores 35 unanswered points. And then Nevada gets their one pity touchdown on the last play of the game, make it 35-24. But yeah, this Nevada team is not good at all. They're going to be on the road here again against Fresno State. I say Fresno State. They're big. The only thing is they're a big favorite. I think 24.5 points.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of points to lay with Fresno State. But yeah, they're definitely gonna win this game. It's just a matter of if Nevada can get the backdoor cover like they did last week or not.
Let's take a second and look at Ryder Cup. Right now, it's the Europeans at 6.5 points and the U.S. at 1.5 points. Heading into tomorrow's match play, it's going to be McIlroy and Fleetwood against Thompson and Justin Thompson and Jordan Spieth. That's the first one. Then it's Holland and Eldberg against Scotty Scheffler and Brooks Koepka. And then Lowry and Staraka versus Homa and Harmon for the U.S. team. And then lastly, it'll be John Rahm and Hatton for the Brits. I'm sorry, not the Brits, but the Europeans. And Cantley and Schaffel for the United States. So they're down 5 points at this point in time in the Ryder Cup pairings. All the Ryder Cup broadcasts will be on seen on USA's Peacock and NBC starting at 6 o'clock or 5:30. I'm sorry, tomorrow, and then again 5:30 on Sunday. So the U.S. is down in the Ryder Cup right now by 5 points, and we move to match play tomorrow. So that's the Saturday morning lineup for the Ryder Cup. So there you go. Any thoughts on the Ryder Cup with regard to, is this a situation where once again the Europeans just are a stronger team or play better, I guess would be the way of, as a team. Or
Yeah, well, they also have home advantage with the golf course,
yeah,
but yeah, probably just stronger team seems to be.
hmm
They've had the history against the U.S. over the last few years. So
There's Terrence with a question for us. Good to see you, Terrence. Terrence, are Stanford, Cal, SMU locked in the ACC agreement? Yes, they are. They had to sign the same grant of rights that everybody else is under. So to answer your question, they are. Yeah, that runs through 2036. So, I mean, but again, they wanted in the conference so badly that they were willing to, in the case of SMU, they were willing to forego money, TV money. Stanford, as we know, and Cal took a lesser amount of money, and they did sign the grant of rights. So it is, yeah, the grant of rights is for anybody. Goes through 2036. So yes, that's what's going on with the grant of rights in the ACC. All right, well let's pop down here and talk a little bit of pro football on Sunday. All right. And couple things. Sunday morning, Atlanta at Jacksonville. That game's being played in London. You can watch it on ESPN Plus. Then there's a kid version, which is kind of cool on Disney Plus. Chris Fowler, Lewis Reddick, and Dan Orlowski on the call of that game. That's a 9:30 kick. Atlanta, Jacksonville. The only place you can watch it is on ESPN Plus, and as I said, a kid version also at the same time on Disney Plus. So that's our and Sunday night game, by the way, is Kansas City at the Jets. See if we have a Taylor Swift sighting out there. Um, all right, let's go. CBS. Nansen Romo will be in Buffalo. It'll be Miami and Buffalo. Baltimore is at Cleveland. Ian Eagle and Charlie Davis on that one. Denver at Chicago. Anthony Catalone, Tiki Barber, Matt Ryan on that game. Pittsburgh at Houston. Spiro Ditas, Adam Marshalletta. And the late game on CBS is the Chargers entertaining Las Vegas, Kevin Harlan and Trent Green. Of those early games on CBS, holding Miami under 70 should be a relatively easy deal for this one. But Buffalo's defense is a bit cleanly a bit better than Denver's at this point. So anyway, of those four, any of the games on there pop out and speak to you there, buddy?
Well, the Baltimore Cleveland one's interesting to me because that
Mm-hmm.
line has been pretty solid at 3 for the Cleveland Browns all week, and now it's a minus 1.5. So some money coming in on the Ravens there, and
Mm-hmm.
that might be a line to watch because I've seen this before, and the Ravens might be favored by kickoff on Sunday.
Well, let's see. Cleveland's defense is where they excel, and I think what they're hoping for is the opportunity to. One thing that we've seen early on is that Baltimore's passing game hasn't really gelled yet, and Cleveland. Cleveland's defense, maybe that's where we are. It's a low-scoring game, and basically possibly a very ugly game because when these two teams get together, they don't like each other because they're divisional players. They don't get along. It's going to be fun. There's a lot of animosity. Obviously, the Baltimore Ravens used to be the Cleveland Browns, so there's a no love lost when Baltimore comes to Cleveland. And so between the dog pound and Cleveland's defense, we'll have to see how it goes. But yeah, I can see where that's those kind of games are just terribly difficult to decide where you're going to go. And I think that as you're pointing out, the money is headed in the direction of Baltimore at this point.
Yeah, which is surprising because, as you said, the Browns have great defense, and specifically they have a great running defense. We
Mm-hmm.
saw them shut down Derrick Henry at home
Right.
last week. They're going to be at home again, and as you said, that passing game is not fully meshing for the Ravens here. So if they're going to rely on, Lamar Jackson running the ball along with Gus Edwards, who's the only one who's
Yeah,
not injured at this point of the running
yeah, they're
backs,
banged
then
up. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how they're going to move the ball. It's going to have to be through the air on this Cleveland team. That seems to be their weakness on defense.
See a lot
It's
of jet
definitely not in the
sweeps.
run game.
Yeah. So all right, let's move off of that and go over to Fox and tell you what's going on. Fox, of course, with the NFC and Washington, Philly. That's Joe Davis and Daryl Johnson on the call for that. Cincinnati is at Tennessee. Adam Amin and Mark Schlereth on that one. The Rams are at Indianapolis. Kenny Albert, Jonathan Vilma. Tampa Bay hosts New Orleans. That's a key NFC South game. Chris Meyer and Robert Smith on the call. Minnesota is at Carolina. That's Alex Faust and Brady Quinn on the call for that game. Some interesting matchups there. Cincinnati, Tennessee, I think is an interesting one. Indianapolis is playing a lot better than I thought they would be playing. And then, of course, Tampa Bay and New Orleans. New Orleans gives Tampa Bay fits no matter when's there. Even Brady couldn't, had trouble with them. So we'll have to see how that plays out too. What on that group? Anything pop out at you?
Yeah, there's a few things. For starters, that Philadelphia line opened at like 7.5, and I've watched it creep up to 9 as of right now. So a lot of money coming in on the Eagles when really their offense hasn't looked that great. So obviously they're at home, but it's still a divisional game. We'll see what Washington has planned for that. The Colts, as you mentioned, they've been surprisingly good this year. And one thing that really interests me about the Colts is they were good with Anthony Richardson. I thought that he was running that offense very well, and they had a chance to be a decent team with Richardson. He definitely looked like the best of the rookie quarterbacks. But I think we found out last week that this might just be a good Colts roster because clearly the offense can move the ball with Gardner Minshew under center. And we know from experience that Gardner Minshew is a competent quarterback. He may not be good enough to be a starter in this league. He probably is somewhere. There probably is a team he could definitely be a starter on. But he's not a bad quarterback. And as a backup specifically, he's a very competent quarterback. So, this is an interesting Colts team. I think that they might be one to watch going forward because it seems like it doesn't really matter who's in there.
Well, he seems to be a good game manager.
Yeah.
And that's really what they need at this point in time. So, yeah, surprise from there. New England at Dallas, no surprise there. Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson. These are the late games. And Arizona is at San Francisco. Kevin Kugler, Mark Sanchez on the call for those games. So, the late games, really not much going on in the late games.
Yeah, there's like two of those are, I think there's 3 of them with the Chargers game in there.
Yeah.
Not a big 4:00 slate. And honestly, the games aren't that good. Like maybe the Patriots and the Cowboys will be a good game. I want to see how the Cowboys respond to that awful loss last week against crappy Cardinals. And personally, I don't think the Patriots are that good. Me and you have talked plenty about Mac Jones and how he is not a quarterback that is going to make this offense move. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, the other two, actually, I think the Raiders and the Chargers game will be interesting as well, just because I wouldn't count the Raiders out in that game. They opened as a 5.5 point dog, but man, this Chargers team, we said it at the beginning of the season. Every year they struggle with injuries, and Austin Eckler's missed the last few games. Mike Williams out for the season with, what was it, an ACL tear. It's starting again, Jim, and at some point, when do we just fire Brandon Staley and maybe, rebuild the team with less injury-prone players. Because at this point, the talent's not the problem with the
Right.
Chargers, but it's keeping the talent healthy. And if you don't have healthy talent season after season, then it's time for a change at this point.
Right.
It just seems
Yeah.
like the same story with them every year. They got the Super
Yeah.
Bowl roster that gets injured 4 games into the season, and then they just fall. Their whole season is derailed as they fall apart.
Things don't go away. Okay, Terrence's question is, who wins the NBA TV deal in 2025? They haven't gotten started conversations, but that'll come in the spring of 2024. My guess is this: Adam Silver and the NBA will not leave money on the table. So ESPN, ABC has already said they want it. They've also gotten that kind of information from NBC as well. So my guess is what they're going to do, and of course TNT and from their standpoint, they're now Warner Discovery, and they want to keep their deal. So my guess is that what we're going to see here is NBC, ESPN, the Discovery networks, which is the old Turner deal, and a streaming component. I think they're going to work it out so that we almost have a game of the night, so to speak, so that so they don't leave any money on the table. And I think that's the way it's going to end up. I think a lot of consolidation here. I think that NBC will get they'll carve out a package. I mean, right now, we got ESPN and Turner, have their nights that they play. And so I think they can figure it out. I think that they can come away with what they want. It almost, in some regards, look a little bit like what the Big Ten is doing with their football, with 3 networks having games and a streamer. So I think that I wouldn't be surprised if NBC got back into the race along with ESPN, ABC, the Turner Group, which is now Warner and Discovery, and maybe Amazon takes on a Friday night game of the week, so that they could, once they get past the football season, they can have a Friday night or a Thursday night basketball game. So yeah, I would say that the negotiations that are going to probably start opening up sometime probably in February, which is not to say, by the way, Terrence, that they haven't spoken to each other. Okay, I'm quite sure that there have been conversations, out there. So have they? But formal conversations are likely to take place sometime in you know, the first quarter of the year. So it'll be interesting. But I do think that they're going to find a way to get everybody involved, because the NBA wants a lot of money, and it's the hottest topic and the hottest um, um, sport right after NFL football. So I think they want to be known, and of course, there's worldwide rights, which are very important to them as well. So we'll see how that goes, but I think that they can get all the people who want a piece of the NBA. They can get them in there. They'll be very creative in how they do it, but they'll definitely get it done. I do think that everybody who wants a piece is going to get there. So they'll just carve the pie up. That's all. It's the old joke: just make more games. So that's how they'll do it. They'll make more nights of maybe the early game belongs to NBC and the late game belongs to Amazon or something like that. So they'll figure it out. But yeah, they're gonna get as much dollars out of this deal as they possibly can. So there you go, bud. That's what I can tell you on that one. Um, all right, back to banners. So we've talked about um, the NFL. We've talked about college. Talked a little bit about the Ryder Cup, which is big. Um, Rye Cope, if if you haven't seen him, you're going to see him on the pages below with Amedeus. This is a big week for NASCAR because they run in at Talladega. Talladega is always one of those races that even the casual fan likes to watch because there is about 100 crashes. They they
Not
can't get
not to
around that
mention a
course.
whole Will Ferrell movie.
Yes, yeah, Talladega Nights. Even Will Ferrell crashed at Talladega. So yeah, it's one of those ones that people watch knowing something's going to happen, and you just hope that no one gets hurt. But yeah, there's usually about 4 cars left at the end of that race. It's super speedway. Cars get up to well over 200 miles an hour, and it can get really, it can get really wild, really fast. So yeah, that's a 2 o'clock start on NBC and Peacock on Sunday. It actually just comes right after Ryder Cup. So the Ryder Cup signs off, and then on comes NASCAR on Sunday on NBC. So, and then Kansas City and the Jets. You've got Taylor Swift maybe showing up in New York.
Oh, I'm
I
pretty
know
sure
that.
she is, Jim.
Yeah, pretty sure that would happen. Dennis Dodd, a friend of mine who writes for CBS Sports and lives in Kansas City, told me that there was a Taylor watch all day over the last 3 weeks. Last 3 days in Kansas City. So who knows? It's going to be interesting. But
Oh,
we've got
for
a very fun weekend of sports on all levels coming your way, and hopefully you'll get an opportunity to see him. Meanwhile, time for Amadeus to get in some of his plugs.
Yes, just before that, I wanted to say about that Kansas City game. Never mind Taylor Swift. The big story for me is how I read this morning that Zach Wilson had
Hmm.
to buy the entire team ice cream because he is trying to win over respect from his teammates.
Well,
So
that'll do it.
keep
You know.
keep in mind when betting the Jets that that's what you're dealing with. Somebody who feels the need to buy his team ice cream because they don't respect him as a quarterback leading the locker
Well,
room.
yes, definitely keep it. Also, keep in mind that there'll probably be a lot of Taylor Swift shots in the. That would actually be a good prop bet. How many times, if Taylor Swift comes to the game, will they be taking shots of her in the, in the press box area up there?
Well, you know what, Jim? That might be more exciting than the actual game that's going on
Oh,
Sunday
there's no doubt about that.
night.
You got that right.
Wouldn't be surprised to see that.
It's too bad they can't flex that game out of prime time, but
Well,
you
we
know,
got the Giants 3 prime times in the first 4 weeks of the
yeah.
season, Jim. So I don't think we're flexing anything out these days.
No, they're not. They're not flexing anything. Um, you can find Amadeus in theinsidersroom.com and
Yes.
other places.
Yes, make sure you check out theinsidersroom.com for my premium plays. It's a brand new site. Go check it out. You can also find my premium plays on bigal.com as well as pickadvisor.com. I got 2 college football plays up for tonight. Got a bunch up for Saturday and NFL up for Sunday as well. And I'll have some Premier League posted right after this show. So you go check that out. You get your football, your pro football, your college football, and your real football fix all in once.
Well, okay. Real quick, should also mention on Peacock they're going to have the Premier League games on Saturday and Sunday as usual. Also, Apple has the MLS games, and they will be on Saturday night. So, didn't want to slide them, but we had a full plate of things to get past on this one, so we got it all done. And hopefully, we answered everybody's questions here. So, any final thoughts before we get out here on a weekend?
You know what? Let's have a winning weekend and enjoy your football Friday.
There you go. All right, until Monday. Take care, everybody.